Hello, I'm probably riding my bike. Hwang Suji is ready for a trip down to the south coast. Shoutouts are calling in sick. Juno kindly picked me up for a 5-hour night drive down to Haenam Ddang-kkeut. And we were rewarded with this beautiful view in the morning. Haenam Ddang-kkeut means Haenam Land's End. It's the southernmost tip of the mainland Korean peninsula. And we're staying at my friend Sean's guest house, the Haenam House. I've been down quite a few times now. This is my first trip down in the winter. Haenam is in my favourite region, Jeollanam-do. I like it because it's so far from most of the bigger cities, fewer cars on the roads. This time, I've had my eye on some gravel roads which I haven't tried before. So the Hwangsuji is perfect. But before we head out, it's time for breakfast and some coffee, of course. Probably not the most suitable heavy breakfast before a long ride. But I managed to get my hands on some British-style bacon and sausages from the Sausage Man in Seoul. Hanging out with Sean is like having your own personal DJ. Every genre under the sun. I always like it when other people are introducing me to new music. I don't think I could be a DJ myself because I always have the fear that people aren't going to like the songs that I choose. I don't know why I'm like that. Anyway, some Travertine single origin coffee with my Snow Peak dripper. It's hard to get this spot on compared to like a V60, but it still came out pretty nicely today. I think I just got the ratios right. This Ethiopian jazz was my favourite record of the trip. So I'd arranged for a winter ride with Juno and asked Sean if he wanted to join too, if he didn't mind riding in the cold. And he kindly invited us down to ride around Haenam. It's good to find friends who are willing to cycle in the freezing sub-zero temperatures. Sean and I had a lot of mutual friends, but we became friends through bikes. I stayed down at his other guest house in Damyang, and he lent his bikes to me and my wife, which was awesome. And then I was on another solo trip down that way, and he'd heard I was there and knew that I was a bit of a lone wolf, but he couldn't let me ride around Jolla on my own. So we had a cool little trip riding through the hills of Posong. Since then we've done quite a few cycling trips together with lots of different people. Sean's one of those people that just gets on well with everyone and likes bringing people together to ride bikes. Most of the riding I've done down here is kind of road touring and camping. We've done a few different routes between Damyang and Haenam, which is like a 3-day ride with camping on beaches in between. But this time, we're here for the gravel. When I was building my Susie, I actually had these roads in mind when Sean told me how fun the rides were around Haenam. Oh, there's loads of them. I saw there was a bike. First, a bit of road riding to get there, and a couple of wrong turns looking for the way up. We could see the gravel path from the bottom of the hill. We just had to work out how to get there. Sean knew a different way, but we just thought this would be a shortcut. Anyway, riding down in Jeollanam-do is my favourite, even in the winter when it's a little bit bleak. I like that it's just rural, everyday life, farmers, not many tourists, or no tourists really, not many cars, and cabbage fields, the breadbasket or kimchi pot of Korea. Most of the fields are for cabbage, garlic, onions. In the autumn it kind of smells like kimchi when you're riding through the fields. Quite a blustery ride on the way to the trail, but coming off the main road it died down a little, and the climbing began. A good way to get warm in the winter is just to ride your bike up steep hills, but it was quite tempting to stop off and see what was cooking here. Most of these fire roads or gravel roads in Korea aren't really shown on the maps, so the best way to find them is using one of the Korean map apps like Naver Maps or Kakao Maps, turning on satellite view and just searching the hills to see any roads carved through them. They can be hit or miss, but quite often they're pretty sweet. But they all start with an insanely steep climb, where you're going to end up pushing your bike. Someone commented, in jest I presume, that my bike couldn't be called probably riding because I post videos of me pushing my bike uphill so often. But I've said before, I don't think there's any shame in pushing your bike up steep hills. If it gets you to the top, that's all that matters. Usually once you get higher up, it's just flowing gravel paths up and down through the hills. Super fun. Even in winter, when everything's kind of dying and decaying, it's still quite beautiful. But I could imagine these paths would be even more amazing in the spring and summer when they're lush and green. Or earlier in autumn, when the foliage is at its peak. Not sure why this barrier's here, but it's not going to stop us. We'll keep going.
Yeah.
On the road to get to these paths, Sean was well ahead of us with his still quite wide but slimmer tyres, while we were slugging along on our chunky tyres on my Susie and Junho's Evasion. But once we're on the gravel paths is where our bikes really came to life. The Susie is a huge tank, but it feels more agile than you think, and these KT bars are perfect. Today's ride is kind of up and down around parts of Haenam. There's a long ridge that kind of goes all the way down through Haenam, which is amazing for hiking, and we're just kind of riding on one side of it.
Watch out.
For once when I come down here, my bag's not laden up with camping gear too. So it's fun to ride around with a lighter bike. Definitely not a light bike, but lighter than carrying all your tent and cooking stuff. The riding today just made building this bike so worthwhile. A huge grin on my face all day, just having the most fun. This was the kind of riding that I used to do when I was a kid. And still just an equal amount of joy, but in an even more beautiful place.
Quintessential Jeollanam-do riding.
Yeah.
Like farms, mountains and sea.
And it smells like cow shit all
Yeah. I think we can go this way.
Close enough.
When people think of cycling in South Korea, they always think of the river bike paths that run from Seoul to Busan and to other cities. I think it's an amazing infrastructure to have. But for me, this is what it's all about. Riding through towns and villages, exploring one region. I just feel like you experience a bit more of Korea rather than just the bike path along the river. Having said that, I haven't done the Seoul to Busan ride. I've heard it's really fun, but I'm always drawn towards Jeollanam-do.
Jojo, like before I go, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna hit this mountain today. Like,
Yeah, that's what I do.
I don't message you by 5 p.m. Like, call the fucking police.
I think it's, once you're warmed up, it's okay.
And it's good to do it with friends too. Sean and I often ride alone, and we were talking about how it's a good idea to tell someone where you're going, especially if you're riding up those gravel paths, because if you fall off and hurt yourself on your own, someone won't know where you are, and someone might not come on that path for days. And coming up to a quintessential Jeollanam-do Cheongja, a pagoda. The ones down here always have a plethora of different indoor furniture for people to chill in. This one didn't disappoint. These are an amazing respite from the sun when you're doing a tour in the summer. Usually when it's a bit warmer, I stop and make coffee at these spots.
How you doing?
But today I'll just say hi to the goats and move on.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not wrong.
Yeah.
I did, bro.
Now we're on our way to the next gravel path of the day. Sean said that the descent on this is super fun and a bit treacherous, so I'm excited for that.
Zeo. Pretty cool little entrance to the trail.
Of
That's the
course,
thing
it
about
starts
them
with a
is-
climb to get up,
I want to take them off. They're pregnant.
but that's all part of the fun. This gravel path looks relatively new as well. A mix of gravel and concrete. And some beautiful views of the sea and mountains
Super cool road.
once you get higher up. Over in the distance, the bigger island there is Wando, which is where we're going to be riding tomorrow. But first, that fun descent that I was talking about. I asked Sean, is there even a path down here? It didn't look very much like one. But I found my way. The beauty of riding such a long, big bike like the Susie, with its chunky tyres, you can just point it down and go. Not much skill involved. There's a few little moments where I almost fell off, but mostly just embraced the chaos.
super fun. This is awesome. Whoa. That was cool.
Overall, about 4 hours of riding on the first day, which is plenty when it's minus a few degrees outside. When it's warmer, I could ride all day, but I do have a limit when it's this cold.
Police.
One last little climb, and we're back at the Haenam house. I'm biased because it's my friend's guest house after all, but I genuinely think this is one of the best places to stay in Korea. Especially with the sauna and the cool hat you get to wear. Apparently in Finland you don't wear these hats, it's just a Russian thing. And a quick soak in the hot tub. Usually on my bike trips I'm camping, so it's nice to have this bit of luxury. This house is kind of by itself with not much else around, so you can enjoy the quiet or be as noisy as you want. A simple dinner of some side dishes, some fish and some pork. And we'll go down and check out the crab trap that Sean had put out the day before, to see if we can catch any crabs to put in our morning ramen. Waiting in anticipation to see if we caught anything. We didn't quite get what we wanted. We did catch this poor little octopus, which we threw back in the sea. None of us could face killing it and eating it. After the sauna and the hot tub, I had the best sleep I've had for a long time. This morning a simple French press, perfect for making coffee for a few people, and a hot tub. Great way to start a day of riding, with another glorious breakfast. Let's check the crab trap now. See if there are any delights of the sea that we've caught. Success. One crab that we can enjoy with our ramen later. The weather was perfectly glorious today. 0 wind, blue skies, fresh air. We're driving over to Wando today, on Sean's Jeep. The rack can fit 2 bikes, but there's enough space to strap the Susie onto the back.
Smooth.
Perfect family.
Off we go to Wando. I've only ever cycled to Wando from here before. Usually it takes about 2 hours of riding. Much faster by car. I think Wando is famous for its seaweed. One time we were camping in a small town there which had a really delectable restaurant which served lots of different types of seaweed with the side dishes. And a busload of other foreigners arrived in this random town. We were all kind of checking each other out, wondering why on earth there was another group of foreigners in this tiny little town. We were just riding bikes. It turned out they were the International Kelp Association. They had people from Scotland, US, Canada, all over the place. I don't know if they were preserving kelp, studying kelp, looking for the right kind of kelp to eat. But I thought it was a pretty unique reason to be down in Wando for a trip. I wonder what the criteria are for joining the International Kelp Association. Time for a bike check of Sean's lovely bike. It's from the brand Otso. Steel frame with carbon fork, a mix of drivetrain parts, and the wolf tooth for that bigger range. I think it can take much fatter tyres than Sean has on at the moment, and I think he might actually have another wheel set for that. A very cool bike and quite a unique one over here in Korea. So let's ride up Wando. A little bit different from yesterday's riding. Yesterday was around the ridge, and this feels like more like riding up a proper mountain. Yesterday's ride was more up and down and flowy, and this one I think is going to be riding to the top. A long climb, and then a nice long descent. Quite a steady incline the whole way. You can just drop in a low gear and just slowly pedal up. It's kind of therapeutic and meditative once you get in the zone. Of course, we did stop off and walk now and again. No shame in that. Unbelievably, I got too hot and had to take 2 layers off. Riding in winter is all about just layering up and being able to take on and off thin layers.
So cool.
This rock face was really cool. I don't know the name of it for those rock climbers out there, but I think rock climbing is quite popular in Korea. If anyone's keen to come over and try it, it's quite a big scene. I'll stick to the safety of riding bikes though. So fast, I think I went past in a blur, you probably barely even noticed me. Higher up the mountain was full of chestnut forests and some nets to catch them. I was surprised to see all the leaves still green on the trees this late into the winter.
That was fun. Yeah, super nice. This forest is so cool.
Up on this mountain in Wando, there was endless different options for bike rides and hiking. Luckily we had Sean's local knowledge to find some nice viewpoint spots later on in the ride. But the speckled light through the trees down through these paths was a delight.
So different to yesterday.
Yesterday I completely neglected to buy any snacks and had a bit of a bonk on the last climb. So today I made sure I had plenty of Haribo and Snickers. Generally, I eat quite healthily day to day, but on these bike rides, I eat all the sugar and snacks.
Yeah.
We found our way to the viewpoint.
Back after the sauna.
Korea has amazing infrastructure for hiking. There's paths everywhere and loads of structures for soaking in the view and taking a rest.
Nice. Good find.
Thousands of islands surrounded in the distance, and enjoying a tangerine freshly picked from my friend's garden in Jeju. There's a ferry from Wando to Jeju, which takes just a few hours. So Sean goes down quite a lot to visit a friend that we have living down there. I haven't been to Jeju Island for a few years, but I really ought to, because some of the riding down there is amazing. There's a bike path, or a bike road, that goes the whole way around the island. But there's actually some really cool mountain and gravel roads around the island too. From our viewpoint, it was basically downhill the whole way. Glorious. It certainly makes all that climbing worth it.
Woohoo! Nice.
I'll set up a GoFundMe page for Junho's new tyres later. Our ride ended at the top of Wando Arboretum, with a variety of lots of different trees and plants,
I guess down.
and 0 people.
Yeah, this is the Arboretum.
I guess in the summer there might be more visitors. It even had a greenhouse, which would be a nice place to warm up after the cold ride.
Yeah. Wow, good. Yeah, I think this might be the greenhouse. I was just thinking, inside.
No one around, so we thought we'd bring our bikes in for a cheeky bike pick. It kind of looks like we're photoshopped in. I love visiting a botanical garden, and one of my favourites is in Kew Garden in London. But it's not often that you get one just to yourself, no one else around. In such a densely populated country like Korea, you can still find some places, some moments of solitude.
So good. Insane.
Back on the road after enjoying some warmth, there's still a bit more descent to enjoy, and a bit of road riding back to the car.
Yeah.
Today's ride was a similar kind of length to yesterday's, probably about 3.5 hours total riding. We really appreciated the lack of wind today. It made for a much warmer ride, especially for our fingers and our toes. Back to the car parked in the car park next to the local football pitch, which I think is used more for training drones. I think they use these big drones to fertilize and do other farming things. Quite cool, and probably quite an efficient way to get things done. Bikes back on the car, and a quick stop off back at the crab trap to see if we caught any more crabs for our ramen. But alas, no catches today. We'll just have to add some shrimp or prawns from the freezer instead. I think a warm ramen is a nice post-ride snack in a winter's day. I think Sean felt a little bit of pressure cooking ramen for a Korean guy. But I think Junho approved. The Haenam house has some amazing sunsets if the weather's clear. You can watch them from the sauna or the hot tub or inside the house. Really beautiful, picturesque place. A place to relax, but also a place for some amazing bike rides. We've got a long drive back to Seoul, but we can't go to Jeolledo without trying some proper Jeolledo food. It's famous in Korea for the best food, I think because a lot of it's grown there, and some of it's really pungent and strong as well. We went to Mehwa Sikdang, not far from the Haenam house. A proper local spot with an amazing spread. We ordered the Sengsan Jongshik, the grilled fish, and side dishes. More side dishes than you can count. Lots of different kimchis, dried fish, a side of boiled pork with some fresh kimchi. One of the kimchis is probably about 3 years old, maybe. It was pretty intense.
This is chola.
But mostly a clean bone club and a clean bowl club. A glorious meal before our long drive back.
Real life.
Hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you want to see more. See you later.